Okay. Okay, so thank you for joining me today to explore the power of subsumption architecture. As you will see in this webinar, it unleashes agility through autonomy. Just as it revolutionized the robotic industry, I believe it can also do the same thing for Agile by bringing the true agility through creating an organizational ecosystem that enables autonomy throughout the entire organization. So by the end of the seminar, I hope you will gain an understanding of what the subsumption architecture is and how subsumption architecture can unleash agility. And hopefully it inspires you and empower you to initiate this transformation at your organization. So let me share my journey with Scrum. So back in 2008, over 16 years ago, Ken Schreiber came to New York City to introduce Scrum. And that's when I was working for them, also work for energy building company. And they hired me to revamp their methodology. Actually, they didn't really have a particular methodology or process that they follow. The problem that they had was that they were constantly working overtime to fix their problems. So when Ken and also the Raleigh, when they came to introduce Scrum, I was totally into what they were trying to do because it was, I think they're, as we know, all the benefits of Scrum. So I completely sold on all the benefits that it can bring. So I was, it had some success with them as well. And then, but then when I was doing it for the large organization, I hit a roadblock because it was not the same as for a small organization. So I was in search for a very good Scrum scaling framework. Okay, and then, so that's when I met Mike Beedle. As you know, Mike Beedle is the Agile Manifesto signator. Did you know that Mike is the one who suggests the term Agile at the Agile Manifesto gathering?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was. And, I have trouble pronouncing Agile. I have a problem with the AG. No matter how much I practice, I still can't perfect it. But anyway, and he's also the first person to implement Scrum at the enterprise level. And of course, he's the creator of Enterprise Scrum. And he also wrote the first book on Scrum with Ken Schreiber that was published in 2001. So I met Mike in 2016 when he came to New York City to introduce his new and improved Enterprise Scrum. And he made a lot of changes for business agility. And he also made some changes to Scrum itself and also Enterprise Scrum to fit the needs of business agility. But I was particularly interested and intrigued by the way his approach of scaling Scrum. And this photo was taken right after I signed a contract to become an Enterprise Scrum instructor. So as I was saying, Mike's approach to scaling Scrum is quite revolutionary. It's quite revolutionary because he's using the subsumption architecture to organizational design. And Mike was killed, we all know that. So it has been a real journey for me because after he's gone, I was really into what he was showing me, and I need to piece things together. And as well as I combined my experience together, and here I am. Okay, so why do we need to consider subsumption? So it's autonomy. So when I was preparing for this slide, I was just going to put autonomy all by itself because autonomy is such a foundation. It's so essential for being agile, right? Without autonomy, I believe it's very hard to realize all the benefits that Scrum has to offer. And without autonomy, Scrum at scale is not Scrum anymore. It's like you're building a castle on sand, So in real estate, it's location. I think in Agile, it's autonomy. Since teams are autonomous, it enables them to make decentralized decision-making process so that they can also collaborate together throughout throughout the entire organization. Because the decisions are decentralized, this also enables them to organization to make all at once management. And what does that do? We are able to make the decision all at once. Of course, this enables the organization to deliver products much faster to the market and create a synergy and alignment throughout the whole organization. But what I think the most important thing, it comes down to survival and profit. So we live in a very disruptive environment where organization has to learn how to adapt quickly to respond to changes. So as you will see in this webinar, subsumption architecture enables to create that ecosystem for organizations to thrive in this very volatile market situation. So what do you think is the biggest challenge for scaling Scrum? Any thoughts?
A lack of alignment.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because we have multiple teams working together, and if they're not aligned, so I think it is all related to managing these dependencies, the multiple team working together. So we need to make sure that teams are not stepping onto each other, right? We need to create an environment that they can be on their own without having a lot of dependencies. So I went to some organization, and then to manage the dependency, because they have so many teams, they have whole work covered with these teams with like who's depending on what. It's like looking at a spaghetti code. It was amazing, but that was one way for them to managing their dependency. But we should be better. We should do better than that. And we know dependency is autonomy. Right? Lack of autonomy leads to less empowered team, and team becomes not committed, and they become not accountable. Most of all, they would have, it leads to low morale, and all this leads to bottleneck, which leads to delay. Scrum just doesn't work. So many scaling frameworks, SAFe, LAST, Scrum at Scale, even Nexus. I think the way I looked at all these frameworks, they manage this dependency by adding more roles, and meetings, and processes. So this leads to adding more layers where hierarchy is flowing from the top to bottom. This is more of a centralized way of managing the dependency. Yeah, you can suddenly manage dependency, but what happens to the autonomy? You kill it, right? So if you don't have autonomous, then you usually bring the delay. It goes back to the same problem. So we often hear, so one way that a lot of people suggest is that, okay, don't scale, just descale, don't do it, right? Okay, that's certainly one way of dealing with it as well. But so the way I see it, problem isn't the hierarchy itself. Sometimes we do need a hierarchy to manage the complexity that we have, right? The problem is when we don't know how to decentralize this decision-making process as we add more layers. So as you will see in this webinar, subsumption architecture facilitates this decentralized decision-making process. So the hierarchy in this subsumption architecture, it is not a command and control hierarchy. It's not where lower layer is waiting for higher layer to make a decision and then do it, right? It's rather inform and decide kind of relationship where each layer, right? Even the all the way on the top layer, because this is still hierarchy, right? They have a certain responsibility. And what they do is that they decide whether they need to subsume the lower layer or not. And this is how robot is also responding dynamically in real time. So did you know what inspired Jeff Sutherland to create Scrum? It's a subsumption architecture. Okay, so let me introduce how Jeff learned. Let me share a story how he learned the subsumption architecture. That is Jeff Sutherland. So back in early 1990s, Jeff Sutherland rented an office space to this company called Robotics. This is where Professor Rodney Brooks, who is the creator of the subsumption architecture, and his teams were building robots. So Jeff had a first-hand experience with how the robot was like building, or actually to experience how robot behave. So he saw robot running around the office, and then he was just amazed how it was working. So one day he asked Professor Rodney Brooks how it works. And then Professor Rodney Brooks told Jeff, said that for 30 years, they were trying to build this robot using this something called very intelligent system, right? And the best they came up with a smart chess program. And then they discovered this subsumption architecture. And they said that this was a total game changer. And then after hearing all this thing from Professor Rodney Brooks, Jeff said, oh, really? Maybe I can use this for my teams too. Maybe the slow programmers can become a better programmer. So that's how it got started. So let's get into what the subsumption architecture is all about, right? So let me explain what subsumption architecture is by going through a very simple example. So how does a robot explore the world? For robot to explore the world, it has to first learn how to avoid an object. Once it knows how to avoid an object, it can wander around. Once it knows how to wander around, it can explore the world. So this behavior of exploring the world is subdivided into the 3 layers, and they are hierarchical layers, with the lowest level having an avoid object, and one above is a wanderer, one above an explorer. Now, there are 2 other major functions of subsumption architecture. They are sensor and actuators. The role of a sensor is to monitor its surrounding, what's going on, and then it sends a signal to all the layers, and actuator is the one that actually does the work. So that is how subsumption architecture is comprised of 3 major roles: sensor, monitoring its surrounding, sending the signal to all the layers, and then actuator actually doing the work. They all work together, substituting the central processor. They need to work all together, all at the same time. This is how they respond in real time. So let me go through another example, a little more interesting example, is that how does a robot avoid hitting a wall while it runs? Okay, so when robot is just about to hit the wall, sensor senses this and then sends all the signal that to all these layers that you are just about to hit the wall, right? So Wonderland gets this signal from sensor and then has to decide whether it has to avoid a wall or hit the wall. Why would you want to hit the wall? But it is up to Wonderland to decide that. So when it decides to avoid the wall, it subsumes this lower layer, avoid object. It doesn't do the work itself, but it subsumes the avoid object, but it activates all those actions in the actuator. And actuator is the one that actually carries out the work. Okay, so let me drill it down even more further, because who uses subsumption? We don't use subsuming, right? Subsuming is some word that is very foreign to a lot of us. So let's drill down what we mean by subsuming. Subsuming is not, first of all, it's not a command and control relationship, as I was saying. It's more informed and then decide. So when a robot is just about to hit the wall, right, sends a signal to these all the layers, and the wander around gets that signal and has to decide whether to avoid the wall or not. And if it needs to avoid the wall, it subsumes the avoid object. But now here's the thing that I want to point out. Avoid object, and this is how it enables the autonomy. Avoid object doesn't wait for a signal from the wander around, but it waits for wander around doesn't tell avoid object directly. Indirectly, these things happening to make them autonomous. That is that the sense when the avoid object waits for sensor to get a signal that is hitting the wall. Then when it gets the signal, it's ready to avoid the wall. And so, and then actuator is the one that actually carrying out the whole activities. Now, I want to ask you guys if you have any question at this point, because I think this is key things for you to understand. Any questions?
Why doesn't the signal that you're about to hit the wall go directly to avoid objects? And why does it have to come from wandering around?
So why doesn't it do it directly instead of why does it do it indirectly? And then why does it so
when the information is sensed, why doesn't it go to all three layers? Like, here's what's going to happen.
It does go to, it sends to all the layers, but it does not directly wait from the wander around. So this hierarchy, although there's a hierarchy, it waits for the signal from the sensor. The reason being that is that it can create more dynamic behavior instead of creating a bottleneck from waiting for this. And then it just sets the condition for actuator to actually do the work. So that is actually a very good question, because that is the whole point, how it differentiates from the traditional way of doing the command and control, if that makes sense. Kind of.
So it sends a signal to all three layers that we're about to hit a wall.
Yes.
And the white object waits here.
Signal is relevant for any of this layer. They are ready, and they don't actually do the work. They set the condition for actuator to do the work. Yeah, so you don't see the line going directly to here, any of the layers. They're completely independent. And that's what enables them to be autonomous, these layers, even though they're hierarchy. So that's a crucial thing to understand. Okay. Hello, Felicia. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Okay, so let's go through. Oh, it's Felicia. Okay.
Felicia.
Hi, Felicia. Welcome. So let's go through the key function of subsumption architecture. Okay, first, this hierarchical subsumption layer that I just went through. So a complex behavior is divided into subgroups where higher layer subsumes the lower layer. Again, it is not a command and control relationship, more of an inform and decide relationship. And this is a very important part of subsumption architecture, because if you do not have a good hierarchical layers, don't have a good subdivision of all these layers, then all the sensors and actuators just will not work properly. Okay. So sensor is responsible, again, monitoring its surrounding and sending the signal to all the layers. And actuator is the one that actually carries out the work. And also, lastly, is the learning from the past behavior. So they have a blank chip inserted into the robot, and then the robot records this as it moves around, and then it learns from. That's how it gets better and better and better. Again, there's no central processor. They all work together, and because all this work together, they enable them to autonomous. Okay, so how might we apply this subsumption architecture for agile scaling? That's what we are here for, right? All this was just to get to this, but you need to understand what the subsumption architecture is. So hopefully you kind of have an idea of what subsumption architecture is. So I'm going to go through an example of applying the subsumption architecture for this company called eAction. Okay, so what does eAction do? eAction is specialized in providing online action services. So first they provide a service. They had some success with airline companies. So basically what they do is that they offer the passengers who already bought the tickets to upgrade their seats. So that this is like a win-win situation for both passengers and also the airline company. For win situation for passengers, because they can experience very luxurious flight experience, possibly at a very discounted price. And also airline companies, they can maximize their revenue by selling more unsold tickets, like premium tickets. And then they're upgraded to premium, so they have more coach seats available, so they can sell cheaper tickets better, right? So they have been so successful. They now they expanded to providing similar services to the Broadway theater production companies, and also they just added artists to sell their paintings through online auction. So they say that, okay, we want our company, for these are the design criteria that they have. First, they want to be customer-centric. So they want to still provide a very tailored solution for their customer segment. And then they also want a culture of ownership and accountability by empowering the teams to make their own decisions. So let me look at how we typically design without using the subsumption architecture, okay? So this is not using subsumption architecture, don't get confused. So they typically probably have a platform team providing common libraries and things like that. And then an auction team, these are the app teams, app auction for the airline, theater, and painting. And then you have a separate, team that does the airline marketing and theater marketing. And then, it's just separated by, auction and marketing departments, right? And then business unit overseeing all this, and then leadership. Now, I'm going to ask you, does this look like a customer centric?
No.
Thank you, Deb. Definitely it's not. And so this may be like, it's like a feature team, right? Airline auction feature team, right? But it's not customer centric, because if it's a customer centric, they need to work together. Airline auction team and airline marketing, there's this silo in here, auction and marketing, right? So this is not a really good way of approaching that. So let's take a look at how we might do it more through a bottom-up approach, okay? So it all starts with providing value proposition and developing features and services. As you do it, you find certain customer segment that you want to provide the services to. And then it rolls up to business unit and then to the company level. Let's do it even more, get it more deeper for this particular company, eAction. So the way I have it right here, it seems like these are two separate teams at this stage, right? But initially they could work together. Auction team where they're developing the apps with the marketing and sales team to figure it out what would be the good action app that they need for airline companies. But as they grow, it can separate it, right? So because we are all talking about scaling, right? And then you have a airline customer segment team. So basically this team is focused on providing value proposition for the airline, different values, right? For now, their value proposition for them is an auction app for airline. And then it goes up to the business unit and the leadership. Let's dig in more, okay? So they say that their design criteria was a customer-centric, and that they want an empower and accountable team. As I was just going through, the all the way bottom is so this is the lowest level of this hierarchy. It's the marketing and the sales team, because they are the one that dealing with the customers and the users directly. And then what they have done, get fed into the platform team, providing the libraries, and also to the airline action app team, right? And then it goes up to the airline customer team. Basically, they are responsible of all the value proposition, not just the action, but maybe some other value proposition for the airline customers. And then goes up to business unit and then an action. It gets more interesting as we add more teams. Now, for the business unit and leadership team. Now, I said that they added theater production companies. So for that, they would add the teams this way. So again, that you would have an action team, theater action team, specializing providing apps for the theater production companies, and then theater production customer segment team focused on more or less on the value proposition for the theater production customers. And then this is where now business unit team, where they overseeing or subsuming the multiple portfolio of customer segment, both airline and the theater customers. Okay, I'm going to pause a little. And now, I mentioned in the beginning that they just added new customer, that is the artist, that they want to sell their paintings, or they want to they sell their paintings, but through an auction. So where do you think that they should add the teams? Where should they add more teams to serve the artist? What would work?
Well, they probably need a marketing piece.
Yes, their own marketing.
I think it's a whole nother stream that matches the theater.
Yeah. So, it needs to, this is just to demonstrate something that they might consider, right? So there's no, so the way this might happen would be, it spun up such a fully different business unit. The reason being is that if you think about it, that these airline companies and theater production company, they're in the business of selling tickets, right? So it's kind of similar kind of functions, whereas artists, they don't sell tickets, but what they sell is that they sell their paintings. So we thought that it justified to create a completely different business unit for them. So that's how this is set up like that. Okay. So what are the subsumption layers for this? Okay, so these are the subsumption layers for this e-auction, right? So the lowest level for this company is the product and services, and then the customer segment, and then the business unit, and then the company. Okay, so where do you think that the functions, because we are talking about scaling at enterprise level, right? So if we talk about enterprise level, we need to think about such thing as a compliance, governance, and HR, and all those kind of things. Where do you think that they belong? Where should we add teams for the functions like such as this? Okay. So I'm not going to put you in too much suspense. So, okay. So there is some of the governance and then compliance functionality can certainly go into business unit layer, business unit level, and also the leadership level. So these things that stands on its own, it's providing services throughout the whole company. So Mike thought, he said he thought about this quite a bit, right? So he did he helped a lot of organizations with the governance. And so he probably thought a lot about this. So you can have a specific need, if there's a specific need for different business unit, certainly you can put it in there. But these also, because this is a company that holds everything together, that's these could also, there's also teams that serves the whole organization by standing on its own. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I see lots of issues where transformation is within the business units, and so then you never really, and you get misalignment.
So I also want to point out, hold that thought. I also want to point out that this is a snapshot. Organization design and structure has to change how the organization grows, right? It makes sense, right? It's not static. So it's a snapshot. I want to point that out. So let's make things even more interesting, okay? So they also added new customer that who also the sports leagues like NFL, right? So for sports league, like a company like an NFL organization, where would they belong? Where should they add teams for this customer? Think about,
If it's buying tickets to sports games, it would be this. It would mirror the.
yeah, you got it, Deb.
Yeah.
You got it. Good. Oh, good. So yeah, definitely. It comes off, it's because they all sell tickets. You gotta collect similarity together because that makes sense, right? Good. Oh, good. So yeah, definitely. It comes off, it's because they all sell tickets. You gotta collect similarity together because that makes sense, right? Yes, definitely. And then now they said that, okay, because this is, team, fans, right? So they want to add some services to engage their fans. So if they want to add some services like that, where should a team like that belong?
In the customer segment.
Yeah, come off from the customer segment. That's what I say, that customer segment, they work on a portfolio of value proposition. So this is example of working on a portfolio of a value proposition, multiple value proposition, right? But it's segregated by each value proposition. You know what I mean? And then business unit, it works on a portfolio of customer segment. And the company, it works on a portfolio of business unit. This is a true, yeah. It's good, right? It's interesting, right? It's very logical, and it has a separation where it needs, right? Okay. So this example is basically using the customer segment as a base to subsume. Okay, so sensor functionality, which plays a key role, right? Just like I explained to you before with how the robot uses the sensors, right? So in our BF, it's monitoring surroundings. So Mike's approach of implementing sensor for an organization is visualizing everything that teams are doing. So he suggested every single team has a canvas to visualize what they're doing. right? And then this is shared by a whole company, right? So there's this company that Mike was working very closely before he passed. This company in Brazil, Revolutionize, they use this canvas on a SharePoint. But I can certainly say that there must be a much better way. But that's one way of doing it. You know, it's transparency sharing. And also, what Mike did was that he also implemented something called collaborator. So basically, it's a subject matter expert on each team. They like worms. So depending on the condition that they have, they inform the teams to do what needs to be done. And also they implemented what's called Andan. Andan is used at a Toyota manufacturing company as a signal to, Andan is basically the traffic light signal, right? So to kind of notify everyone all at once if there's any problem. So for like e-auction company, especially for the airline customers, if there's a bad weather, they can probably have some kind of signal that disseminates throughout the whole organization, and based on that signal, they would act appropriately. So this is, I think that we can certainly use a notification system for censoring functionality. That's basically my idea, and this needs to be expanded more. There's a lot of things that can add it to this subsumption architecture to automate a lot of this, especially sensor part of the functionality. So let's take a look at what kind of business canvas, what kind of canvas that these team might have. So let's take a look at airline marketing team. So this is what Mike did. We need to do a lot more. This is definitely a template. And this is the canvas for the marketing and sales team. As you can see that the information that is needed for the marketing and sales teams are here, like positioning, messaging, campaigns, and so on. And let's now take a look at what airline auction. So this is basically, this is very similar to business model canvas because they are developing the features, apps for the providing value proposition for the airline company. So it's very much similar to business model canvas. And then customer segment team. Again, customer segment is responsible for overseeing the value proposition, portfolio value proposition. So they look at not just one value proposition, they will look at multiple value propositions and the services that is needed associated with that. And then for the ticketing, now this business unit with the customer segment, they're overlooking the multiple customer segments. And then all the way on the top, e-auction. It's again that's looking at the multiple portfolio of business units. They're sitting on the top. So they are overlooking, then providing the actual services for the organization. So I like to call this visualization on steroids.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so actuator is basically the teams, because teams are the one actually doing all this work, right? In a robot, they actually do it, but then I think it's the team. And then learning from the past behavior, this is done very well in Scrum itself, right? Because Scrum itself has a transparency, inspect and adopt, and it constantly learns from what we have done, if done right. But that's set up already. So in Enterprise Scrum is based on Scrum. So that's how it works. So I think this is the very important thing to consider. What factors should we consider when we to use as a base to subsume, right? And the example that I just went through is for e-auction is using the customer segment as the base to subsume. Mike thought that is key to use, especially if you are developing innovative and new products, right? You group it by the customer segment because they know what they want, and then you can provide very innovative product by looking at just focus on one customer segment at a time. And then once you get grow, a company grows, I think that suddenly there's some similarity, related to the geographic areas. But whatever you do not subsume it. Just using your subsumption architecture, and then use the functional or develop and deploy and front and back as the base of subsumption. It will not work. Yeah. So what I have just shown you is that using the subsumption architecture that typically we all use only 2 level. When you scale, we need to turn that into n level. And that's what we've done. That's what I've shown you and what Mike had.
Yeah.
So when we think about the Scrum at scale, so that, they have a hierarchical layer because, they're hierarchical layer by having more meetings. Scrum, right? That's hierarchy, right? And then more roles, like executive action team, executive master, that's hierarchy, right? And then they don't even give you guidance how you group this. No guidance at all, right? What's worse is that they create a silo between how and what. This is how and this is what. They divide it instead of merging, uniting them to work on their own things so they can be autonomous.
Wow, that's
they're dividing this.
Yeah.
Going back to what we used to do, having old ways in a waterfall way. You have when they grow, you have a requirements department here sitting on their own. Then there's a development team over there, and then they just, it's like, why? I don't understand. What boggles my mind is that people don't figure it out. So many of these others framework, Nexus, Less, all these other, they only use subsumption architecture only 2 levels. They not use n level. And when you scale, you have to do it n level, just as I have shown you. Okay, so who's using the subsumption architecture? So Mike definitely did it for severe scale mark. And as I was telling you about Revolutionize in Brazil, so I was working very, I talked to this Kiengia, and we also had a presentation together for one of the meetup. And so he implemented, they implemented quite a bit of what the Enterprise Scrum. And so basically this Revolutionize is a betting company, and it's one of the biggest royalty and reward betting company in Brazil. And certainly I have used it in my own to limited capacity at autonomy as well. So again, what are the benefits? Autonomy. It's the foundation. Without this, Scrum agility doesn't work. Agility requires autonomy, okay? So guess what? I named my company Autonomy because I think it's like, and then when I told Mike that my company name is Autonomy, it was like, interesting. So that's very interesting. So again, because the teams are autonomous, they can, you have a decentralized decision-making process. And this enables all at once so that they can deliver products much faster, creating a synergy and alignment throughout the whole company. And what it comes down to is that teams are happy because they're autonomous, because they can do on their own. So when they do that, they produce better products. So the customers are happy, end users are happy. And those things will really makes the stakeholders happy, right? Everybody's happy. But then what it comes down to is, again, survival and profit. As I was saying, that we live in a very fast-moving and disruptive environment, and a team has to be autonomous so that they can adapt quickly to changes, so they can respond very quickly. So as I told Dev and also Barbara, so they accepted my talk. I'm not talking about workshop. Workshop is even better. It's because you're gonna really try this. You learn better if you do it on your own, right? So I have this in a workshop format, which I did it at the Scrum Alliance. Also the same thing. But now I gained some more experience by doing it at the Scrum Alliance. So it's going to be even better at this Baltics Agile Tour Vilnius. So new names for me. So it's going to be October. So Barbara, hopefully that you can come. I do have
I'm
some.
coming.
Oh, that's great. It's
I
great.
just had a meeting with Simon and I asked him because I told him I'm going to your webinar and he said, yes, tell her that you're coming.
Okay, that's great. That's fantastic. All right, I'm so excited. I'm gonna
Me
spend.
too.
Okay. All right, that's great. All right, so that's that. And as I was saying, Mike made Enterprise Scrum. He made a lot of changes to Enterprise Scrum to fit the needs of business agility. So what did he do? I just want to give a quick overview because what I cover is just about the scaling part of it. But there's a lot more. There's so much more that he's done that we can utilize and that people can take advantage of, right? First of all, we are doing if we are talking about applying Scrum for enable business for them to be agile, right? Then first thing has to do is that you need to clean up the terms because like the naming terms, right? So he changed some of the namings. Like first, the major thing is that we don't call it sprint. He calls it a cycle because sometimes it's not just quick sprint, but it could be a cycle. And also business unit and so many other, they should just clean up the terms in the Scrum so that it fits the need of not just the software developer, but for the whole organization. Then he has structured patterns. So he was a patterns person. So there's a structured patterns that we can also use when you scale. And then he made all this Enterprise Scrum to be more pluggable and configurable. So basic information of all this thing is on my website, Autonomy. So I made a very quick video of the Enterprise Scrum Business Agility on YouTube. You can find the link from my website as well. My website, in case you guys didn't know, is www.autonomy.com. Okay, so thank you, ladies, spending your valuable time with me to explore the power of subsumption architecture. So I want you to look at how decisions are made at your organization or to your clients. See if there's any bottleneck. And major thing is that the teams are waiting for somebody to make the decision, right? That should be a red flag. And as I was kept saying, that dependency impedes the autonomy. So I hope that subsumption architecture provides a way to untangle this dependency so that your organization can thrive in this virtual marketplace. So together, we can revolutionize how we approach the agility. Thank you. And this is my LinkedIn review. Felicia, you can certainly connect with me on LinkedIn through this is the call. That's it.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you.
You liked it?
Yeah, very
Yes.
much.
Oh, thank you so much. Any questions? If you have more questions, feel free to reach out to me anytime.